Sports Talk Chicago. Here Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the CEO of MuellerFootball.com, host of the Football GM podcast, and the 2000 NFL Executive of the Year. Please welcome Randy Mueller to the program. Randy, great to have you on. How are you?
Doing great, John. Thanks for having me on. Always good to talk a little ball with you.
Randy, what was your reaction to the Bears win on Sunday?
I think the Bengals were the right tonic for the Bears. I think we've all said all along that the Bears have a good defense. They just need to play better, and they did that. And really, that's the crux of the message coming out in my mind. I was able to see the game on tape, so I got to look at it a little more precisely than some. But I thought it was a good effort. Obviously, defensively, they made some plays, and that's what really counts at the end of the day.
How do you evaluate Justin Fields' performance in the game?
I thought it was okay. I think everybody knows there's going to be a learning curve with Justin. So, to think he's going to pick up reads, to not miss some throws, to play a perfect game, it's just not going to happen. But the more of the experience that he can get, the better he can get that out of his system. We see what's going on with the Jets and Zach Wilson. We see what's going on with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. These guys need to fail forward fast, if that makes any sense. And that's one advantage to playing, is you can get that out of your system. You can, sometimes it's trial and error, right? But you got to take the bad with the good. And I think Bears fans saw a little bit of both in Justin on Sunday.
Did the 28 passer rating concern you? Was that an issue to you?
Not really. I mean, there's a guy that didn't take first team reps all week long. I think it's a little different when you can prepare knowing you're the starter. Sure, he hit some throws, but he also made some throws too. And he made a couple throws that I'm not sure Andy can make. In fact, I know he can't. And we all know athletically what he can do. So I think all in all, it's not about the numbers. I don't think people are going to be able to judge Justin Fields with numbers on paper at all, because I don't think that serves him. I think it's really an injustice. So I think you'll know, people will know, fans will know when that time is. I guess that's up to Matt Nagy.
Based on Sunday, do you think he's ready to start permanently?
Well, I've said all along that it's in a tough spot, right? He's ready to start. You can play him, but there's going to be some rough patches. And I've also said that that's what Matt really doesn't want, and that's what he's trying to avoid. It's a tough spot. I mean, he's in a different agenda than really the organization, because he's trying to coach for his future. And so he's got to do what's right to win games right now. He can't really absorb a 6 or 8, game learning curve and lose 4 or 5 of those games, which teams are going to do with a rookie quarterback. That's just a given. So puts him in a tough spot. I'd have no problem playing the kid, but you got to know that it's going to be a Mr. Toad's wild ride. I mean, it may be around any corner a disaster, and then he'll make a wow play that'll make your hope be genuine. And hope is what fans want to see. And a quarterback like him gives you hope, that's for sure.
What do you think of the interception late in the Bengals game? That turned things over, got things a bit close. The Bears still won, but I mean, that's a rookie mistake, right? Nothing to be concerned about.
Oh, I'm concerned about it. There's no question about it, but I'm also concerned about why we were throwing the ball in the last 2 or 3 minutes as well. So, that figures in. I don't blame completely the players for everything. I think the scheme has to be looked at. I think at some point, the offensive scheme in Chicago is going to have to be expanded. I don't care who the quarterback is. It seems like we've had this same conversation for 2 or 3 years now. At some point, you're going to have to spread the field and throw the ball around. You're not going to be able to win holding all your cards close to your vest and hoping your defense scores a couple touchdowns for you. That's just not the NFL nowadays. So at some point, we're going to have to see some approach where we can attack the whole field. That's the one thing Justin can do, is he can attack the whole field at all levels. So we'll see. It just, matter of when they, throw him in there for real.
Why do you think that's been the case for the Bears? Has it been a quarterback problem, or is Matt Nagy more so to blame for never really expanding the playbook or expanding the ball downfield?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the intricacies of the system, but from what I see on film, it's been the same with every quarterback. I don't think the quarterbacks mattered. I mean, all the way back to, the last, I guess he was Trubisky. We were going to set the offense around him. And when you do that, when you set the offense around a quarterback that's limited, it's like playing with one arm behind your back. The defenses are good. They're really good. And you can't attack them. It's like going to battle with a, BB gun, and everybody else has high powered rifles. You can't do that. And so really, I understand the plan, but I'm not sure at the end of the day that's good enough. I think what it comes down to is, in the long run for Bears fans, do you trust Matt Nagy with the career of Justin Fields? That's really what it comes down to.
Do you trust Matt Nagy with Fields? You yourself.
I haven't seen evidence to where I think Justin Fields, is going to go to the next level. I want to see something on offense that he can take to the next level. I want to see some things develop that he can get good at. Right now, we're just calling plays. We're calling plays. Certain ones work for him. Certain ones work for the other guy. I don't see the flow of a system in place. I just see a bunch of plays being called, and whether that's the quarterback limits those plays, I don't know. The offensive line, as you know, is shaky as heck. That's not a good setup either. So they've got some hurdles to overcome. I don't think the offense is to NFL standards yet for all those reasons.
Randy Mueller here on Sports Talk Chicago. Randy, are you concerned about the Bears having not enough talent around Fields? Like Fields being a good quarterback, yes, but not having enough guys around him to shoulder the burden.
100%. That's been my struggle with it all along. I mean, we've seen what happened to the offensive line. We just mentioned it. I don't know that there's enough receivers to go around. I mean, there's a couple okay backs. We paid Jimmy Graham, $8-9 million. And I don't think he's anywhere near what he was 4 or 5 years ago. So I think there's been hits that just haven't happened in the last year. I think it's been over the last 3 or 4 years. Some guys have got out the door that have gone elsewhere and developed. But yeah, I'm always concerned about the surrounding cast, especially for a young quarterback. I don't think it's fair to have him go out there and have it all on his shoulders. That's for sure. And that's going to be a hard battle for them to overcome. I understand the defense is good, but I don't know that can carry this team in 2021 in the NFL.
How important is that for a rookie quarterback? I mean, we're not seeing it just with Fields. We're seeing it with Lawrence, Zach Wilson, too. These are guys who were talented, but really have nothing around them, and the numbers are showing.
Yeah, it's an organizational failure or success when a quarterback can progress or not. And I agree with you. It starts with the GM, it starts with the players around him, it starts with the coach and the schemes. I mean, hey, we saw Sam Darnold struggle forever in New York. Guess what? He's pretty good, right? I mean, he played pretty good for the Carolina Panthers the last 2 weeks. So coaching matters as well. So it's a convoluted story for these quarterbacks to succeed, but a lot of things got to come together. But it starts with the talent that you put around him for sure.
Let me ask you this. Did you like the reduced package for Fields? Do you like that concept from Nagy?
No, I don't. I don't like the reduced concept for Mitch Trubisky either, because I think, again, it limits what you can do. The other teams are good. Defenses are good. They're going to figure out a reduced package. That's just the way it is. I don't think you can be successful over the long haul playing with a reduced package of any kind. I know how defensive coaches are, and it's going to get worse in the second half of the season because that's when coaching really matters. And especially on defense, they have film, they have tendencies, they have trends, they have all the information that they need to put together game plans to stop you. So I just think it's hard to do anything with a limited skill set. And if we're trying to protect people, I think that's the wrong attitude to go in with. Maybe we're in survival mode in week 2, but that's going to be a long season if you are.
So the argument is, well, we want to get Justin Fields' feet wet. We don't want to put him in too quickly. We'll get him better over a couple of weeks. What do you say to that?
You gotta let him sink or swim at this point. You got to get him ready. These guys are going to come out of it. The Zach Wilsons, the Trevor Lawrences are going to be way better in week 10, week 8 than they are right now. And guess what? They're going to be way better next year, having played these games this year. It's just the part of developing a quarterback that you got to be able to take the bad with the good. I don't know how you get better if you don't play, because I know you can't get better in practice. I don't think you can get better in preseason. I just think the speed of the game is so different in the regular season that the only way you can train a quarterback is to get him to play. And, there's no substitute for real live action.
When do you think it's right to judge Fields based on his performance? Do you think he needs a full year, a couple of years?
I think he needs a couple of years for sure. I mean, I think was it fair to judge Sam Darnold? That was 3 years, right? Yeah, it was 3 years. So I don't know I think every situation presents different evidence, right? And so we'll see going forward. If I think you've got to be progressing as a quarterback, you can't make the same mistakes over and over again. That's hard to stomach and hard to see development when that happens. But I think the scheme has to meld with the skill set in order for that quarterback to get better and progress. Time will tell. We just don't have enough body work yet. The skill set that we evaluated Justin Fields on in college is there. I think there's enough to judge that still and say, yep, what we saw is probably there. But going forward, there's so much up in the air about the scheme and the way the people are around him, the opponents, the packages, the matchups. Time will tell.
If Andy Dalton's healthy, should he start next week?
I mean, I don't know. I guess if he doesn't start, what was the reasoning for starting him the first 2 weeks? And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that was the rationale, right? The rationale should not have changed. They won a game. So he can't change I don't think you can change the rationale now by just, Justin Fields getting 42 plays or whatever he got. So I assume he's going to start, if he's healthy. And again, we can dispute whether that's the right or wrong decision, but common sense says he's going to start.
What if he isn't healthy? What if he misses 4 games? Fields comes in, does okay. Should the Bears transfer back to Dalton, or at this point, if that's the case, just leave Fields in and let him ride it out?
Well, I think you got to figure out what your record is after those 4 games, and we're surmising and kind of guessing as to what might happen. That's always a slippery slope, but I would think if they have mild success when he's in there, there'd be no reason to pull him out, in my opinion. I'd let him play and see how it shakes out. You've got a rest of the season to give you the rest of your team hope and to maybe figure out what you might be able to do better with him at the helm. So there's a lot to be learned if he plays, without a doubt. I don't know that there is a lot to be learned if he doesn't play.
What could this do to the Bears season? Are you expecting better results now, or is your preseason prediction the same with Fields coming in?
I don't see a big difference, to be honest with you, because like I said, I haven't seen the system that supports whoever the quarterback is. So if I saw a system that spread the ball all over and reminded me of the 2000 Rams, then I'd be, saying, hey, we got our ducks lined up. Let's find the right quarterback. But I haven't seen that yet. Plus, the talent around him isn't going to improve. It's only going to get, shredded with injuries over the next, 17 weeks, so to speak. So I don't know that you can find the answers to that. I just think time will tell, and nobody wants to hear that as an answer for sure. But, it's hard to crystal ball where we are going to be in a month from now. I assume that Justin Fields is going to play as much as he can. That's the only thing that makes sense for the organization going forward. I know that, but I can surely appreciate that may not make the most sense for Matt.
What does make the most sense for Matt Nagy?
Winning games. And I think Justin gives you a better chance to win games. I just think he offers so many more things. One, athletically, two, the arm talent that Andy doesn't have. Yeah, he doesn't have the experience. I get that. But I don't think this kid's going to fail. I think they're going to find a way to get it, out of his hands at the right time. They just need to let it go at some point, and he's going to have to figure it out. He can't figure it out in the classroom on the chalkboard. I know that. So he's going to have to see it, react to it, get hit a couple more times like he did in preseason, hopefully not get hurt, and come back from it.
Randy Mueller, still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Randy, I'm curious, how do you go about developing a franchise QB?
Well, I think it depends on your roster. That's the biggest thing. And again, I've not drafted one in the top 10 like these guys have. So I'm probably not qualified to answer that. I've been around some good quarterbacks. I've drafted a couple of them. I've signed them off the street. I mean, I had Warren Moon in Seattle. We had Jon Kitna, who was an undrafted free agent. So those guys, were handled completely different. Jon Kitna was one we sat on the practice squad all year long, and he became a starter in the league for 10 years, but he didn't take a snap. He was on scholarship the whole first year. If there's any way you can do that, great. But he was playing behind a Warren Moon, playing behind a proven commodity. That's the best way to develop a quarterback is when you don't have to, if that makes any sense. It's when you have to and have to play him that you have problems. So it's like Jordan Love in Green Bay. The best way to develop him is, draft him and sit him for a couple of years, and maybe he'll have that. But, time will tell if that works out as well. I just think it's an organizational, decision to draft one, in my opinion. And then you've got to fill in all the parts around him to give him a chance to develop. I keep going back to Sam Darnold, but he didn't have all the parts around him. He had a questionable scheme. The coaching obviously wasn't what he's getting now. So it's different. And he had no, playmakers. He was throwing to neighbor kids half the time he was there, right? The receivers just weren't there. So, it's a total organizational decision. And not only that, it plays out at the hands of everybody that's a decision maker in the organization.
How do you determine as a GM if a quarterback worked or didn't?
I think you've got to be honest. And to be honest, you're going to have to get, two and a half years of starts. I mean, the Giants are still trying to figure it out, right? And they're in year 3 with Daniel Jones. So whose fault is that? Has he, improved? I don't know. I mean, again, I think you see a skill set that allows you to either pick them or not when they come out. And then it's up to your staff to develop them. And if you don't see signs after 2 or 3 years, probably sooner than that they're getting better, you're better off cutting the cord and moving on.
Your experience, who was more to blame for a guy not working out, the player himself or the coaching?
I think sometimes players get drafted out of need and get drafted sooner than they should have. That's not the player's fault. We had Rick Meyer in Seattle, so I stand corrected. We drafted Rick Meyer. I wasn't in charge at the time, but we drafted him with the 2nd pick in the 1st round. It wasn't his fault that it didn't work out there. We traded him to Chicago, as you know, and it didn't work out there either. So there's a skill set that was probably misevaluated coming out. So there's blame to go around, and it depends on the individual person and player. But, I think some do it better than others. That's for sure.
Who's the best quarterback you developed?
Oh, I think John Kitna was from where he came from. I'll be honest with you. And that's not a household name for some, but he threw for a lot of yards. I was in Seattle when Dave Craig did the same thing, and Dave Craig's in top 10 in all-time numbers for a quarterback. He was another undrafted college free agent. These guys went the route of Tony Romo, right? That, nobody picked them. They had a chance to learn and sit and do better. And these guys all have a knack, though, when the lights are brightest, they do the best. I don't think you can judge a quarterback by anything he does in practice, other than if he keeps screwing up the organizational or the administrative part of it. Once you get the administrative part of it down, it's about shining when the lights are brightest. And these guys, you learn early on that, hey, this guy's got something special about him. When the lights are bright, he does not shy away from it. And those quarterbacks I named all had that.
Is that common today to find an undrafted guy and have him kind of blossom into this veteran? We don't see that too much today.
I don't think we see it because there's not a platform to do it. We sent John Kitna to the World League, and he played there for a couple of years. Kurt Warner went to the World League. Hall of Fame Jake Delhomme, another guy, went to the World League. See, we had the XFL, we had the AAF. Those don't exist anymore. I said for many years that the best thing we can do for our game is to develop quarterbacks, and that's what these other leagues did. They gave guys a chance to go play and learn the system and get reps at game speed. We don't have that now. So I think it's really hard for a player to come out of college to get the reps to develop. I think if this 3rd league would ever come around again, whatever it is, I think that's good for the game. I think quarterbacks can then get an opportunity to play. PJ Walker was a quarterback in the XFL. Now he's the backup in Carolina. He's the only one that really came out of that league. But if that league were to exist for 2 or 3 years, you get some guys that will go on to play quarterback in the NFL, no doubt about it.
How about the worst quarterback you've developed? Who would that?
Well, I don't know about worst quarterbacks. I mean, we've all had our share of swings and misses, that's for sure. And again, it's not up to the individual players, that's for sure. A lot of times, some teams are bad, right? And we had a couple in Seattle where guys never had a chance. We drafted Dan McGuire in the 1st round from San Diego State. We traded the Phoenix Cardinals for Kelly Stauffer, gave a 1st round pick for him. Those guys didn't work out, but it wasn't necessarily all on them. We were a bad team. We didn't have the right surrounding cast. So it's hard to blame a particular person. I blame the evaluators more than anything else for misevaluating what we were getting in a skill set and not being able to develop it once you got it.
Randy, before we finish up today, last question. The best moment from the Football GM podcast has been what?
The best what?
Best moment.
Oh, I don't know. I enjoy telling the stories from old times, whether it was a Nick Saban story or a Mike Holmgren chewing my butt story or something like that. If you're around as long as I have, you're bound to have your butt chewed here or there. And I enjoy telling those stories. I know the listeners like that for whatever reason, and that's been good. But Mike Sando is my co-host on the Athletic Podcast, and he does the heavy lifting. I'm just along for the ride. So I credit Mike for kind of getting this off and growing. And we're into season 2 now, and it's a lot of fun. It really keeps me engaged watching film and being involved in the game. And I really enjoy the give and take with Mike for sure.
Wait, can we hear one of those stories before we finish up? Funniest one or craziest one?
I don't know if they're crazy, but obviously I spent 2 years in Miami with Nick Saban, right? And so I was the GM when he was the head coach. So I told Mike this the other day off the air. People don't know my first year with Nick Saban, I lost 25 pounds. And they
Really?
said, yeah. And it was just because of the way we did our work and the way we grinded now. And this came up in talking about Urban Meyer in Jacksonville when he said, oh, I work harder than everybody else. Well, everybody works hard, but we really worked hard with Nick. And he made us all way better. And what they say, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you better. So I remember my agent seeing him about halfway through that first season with Nick. And I walked into the restaurant to have lunch with him, and he didn't recognize me. He said, whoa, where's Randy at? There's half of him right there. But and Nick and I laugh about it too. It just comes with the territory of the NFL. It is a grind and literally can take a toll on you physically. And it did with me that first year with Nick in Miami.
Well, Randy, thank you so much for joining me. Always appreciate the time. Best wishes moving forward with the podcast, and I'm sure we'll catch up again very soon. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.